Egypt isn't just a relic of the past, it's a beacon of resilience and creativity, forever rooted in the sands of time, yet reaching boldly toward the future. Welcome to Historical Moments, where we take you on a journey through time. Our channel is dedicated to bringing you fascinating stories, pivotal events, and unforgettable moments that have shaped our world. Whether it's a significant battle, a game-changing discovery, or a moment of triumph, we uncover the history that defines us. Subscribe and join us as we explore the past, one moment at a time. Egypt, a land where the sands carry whispers of an eternal story. A land of gods and pharaohs, of monumental pyramids and the mighty Nile River that carves life into the desert. This is the story of evolution, of transformation. How Egypt emerged from ancient marvels to become a modern nation full of dynamism, resilience, and cultural significance. Our story begins nearly 5,000 years ago. The world was young, and on the banks of the Nile, a civilization was awakening. Before Egypt was unified, there were scattered villages along the fertile banks of the Nile, surviving on agriculture and local trade. Their connection to the land brought a deep spiritual reverence for nature. They worshipped the sun, earth, and river as divine forces. Then, somewhere around 3100 BCE, Menes or Narmer, the king of Upper Egypt, changed the course of history. He unified Upper and Lower Egypt into one kingdom, marking the beginning of the dynastic period. This was the dawn of civilization as we know it, the start of the Old Kingdom. The Old Kingdom, often referred to as the Age of Pyramids, gave us wonders that still define Egypt today. The Great Pyramid of Giza, a structure that defies comprehension even in our modern age, was built during this era for Pharaoh Khufu. These pyramids were more than tombs. They were symbols of divine power and cosmic order. Egyptian society revolved around the idea of mayat, balance, justice, and harmony. Everything, from their politics to their religion, was rooted in this concept. The kings, known as pharaohs, weren't just rulers. They were intermediaries between the gods and the people. The entire economy and workforce rallied behind their projects. These monumental constructions weren't just feats of engineering. They were reflections of a civilization that dared to dream bigger than anyone thought possible. Yet, as all things do, the Old Kingdom came to an end. Economic challenges and internal strife fractured Egypt, ushering in the first intermediate period, the Dark Age of ancient Egypt. But this isn't where the story ends. Darkness is often the precursor to Renaissance, and Egypt was no stranger to rebirth. From these shadows emerged the Middle Kingdom around 2050 BCE. It was a time of restoration, a rediscovery of stability and culture. This period saw pharaohs investing in their people. Rather than focusing solely on monumental structures, attention turned to public works, canals, and the expansion of arable farmland. Literature flourished. The Egyptians began writing texts of philosophy and morality, pondering the meaning of life and death in new ways. The Middle Kingdom ended with another period of instability, but Egypt didn't stop evolving. The 18th dynasty brought us into what many call the New Kingdom, Egypt's Golden Age. This was the era of empire. Pharaohs like Hatshepsut, a woman of unparalleled intellect and ambition, expanded Egypt's trade network to new heights. Thutmose III became one of Egypt's greatest military leaders, creating an empire that stretched deep into the Middle East. And then there was Ramses II, the pharaoh who looms large in both history and legend. Known as Ramses the Great, his reign witnessed the construction of immense temples like Abu Simbel, monuments designed to awe and intimidate. It was under Ramses II that Egypt signed one of the first known peace treaties with the Hittites, showcasing not just military prowess, but also diplomatic skill. But perhaps one of Egypt's most fascinating figures was Akhenaten, the heretic king. He turned Egyptian religion on its head by promoting the worship of one god, Aten, the sun disk. While his reforms didn't last, they foreshadowed ideas about monotheism that would echo through history. The new kingdom ultimately declined, and Egypt faced invasions from outsiders. Assyrians, Persians, and then Greeks under Alexander the Great all shaped the land. Alexander founded the city of Alexandria, a beacon of knowledge and learning that housed the famous Library of Alexandria. After Alexander's death, his general Ptolemy established the Ptolemaic dynasty. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, became a symbol of both charm and tragedy. Navigating the power struggles of Rome before her death marked the end of Egypt's ancient glory. The Romans arrived, and Egypt became a province of their vast empire. It was a significant cultural shift, but the land retained its identity. The Nile still flowed, and Egypt remained the breadbasket of the Mediterranean. Fast forward centuries, and Egypt transformed again. After the spread of Islam in the 7th century CE, Arab forces conquered Egypt, integrating the region into the Islamic world. Cairo, founded by the Fatimid dynasty, blossomed into a center of art, science, and commerce. The city's Islamic architecture, including Al-Azhar University, considered one of the oldest universities in the world, remains a symbol of Egypt's intellectual legacy. The Ottoman Empire ruled Egypt for several hundred years, until the arrival of Napoleon and the French campaign in 1798. This marked the beginning of modern Egypt's complex interactions with Europe. In the early 19th century, Muhammad Ali seized power, initiating sweeping reforms that modernized Egypt's military, economy, and infrastructure. He is often considered the father of modern Egypt. Then came the Industrial Revolution and the construction of the Suez Canal, a project that connected Europe to Asia and revolutionized global trade. Yet it also intensified foreign control over Egypt, with Britain eventually claiming control as a protectorate. The 20th century brought revolution. Egypt ousted British rule in 1952 under the leadership of Gamal Abdel Nasser and established itself as a republic. Nasser became a figure of Arab nationalism, pushing for social reforms and modern development. Under his leadership, the Aswan High Dam was completed, transforming agriculture and energy production. Egypt's journey into the modern age hasn't been simple. Wars, political upheavals, and economic challenges have tested the nation. Yet Egypt perseveres, balancing its ancient heritage with its modern ambitions. Today, Egypt stands as a cultural and geopolitical bridge between Africa, the Middle East, and the world. The pyramids still rise out of the sand, silent witnesses to the passage of millennia. The Nile still flows, carrying life to its people. And Egypt itself continues to evolve. Its story not one of chapters closed, but of pages still unfolding. Egypt isn't just a relic of the past. It's a beacon of resilience and creativity, forever rooted in the sands of time, yet reaching boldly toward the future. Egypt, a land of ancient wonders and global significance, has a modern political history that is just as fascinating as its pyramids and pharaohs. Today, we're delving deep into the history of Egypt's presidents, exploring their influence on this vibrant nation, their successes and challenges, and the legacy each left behind. Egypt may be home to one of the oldest civilizations on Earth, but its presidential history has spanned just over 70 years, and yet, these years have witnessed dramatic upheavals, triumphs, and transformations. Let's rewind to the early 1950s, an era marked by the birth of a republic, the end of a monarchy, and the rise of a movement destined to reshape Egypt's future. When Egypt officially abolished its monarchy in 1952, it marked a watershed moment for the nation. That year wasn't just a political revolution, it was a social and cultural one. The country had been under British influence, managed by puppet monarchs, for decades. Egyptian society was divided, with the upper echelons benefiting from foreign interests while the majority suffered under poverty and inequality. A group of army officers, known as the Free Officers Movement, catalyzed change. And that change began with the first president of Egypt, Mohammed Naguib. Mohammed Naguib, a military officer with a dignified presence, became Egypt's first president in 1953. Unlike monarchs who had ruled Egypt like divine figures, Naguib presented himself as a servant of the people, an embodiment of the Republican spirit. However, his leadership was short-lived. Naguib's ideals clashed with others within the Free Officers Movement, especially Gamal Abdel Nasser, who would rise to dominate the nation's political landscape. Naguib hoped for a swift transition to civilian governance and a greater focus on democracy. This, however, conflicted with Nasser's vision of a powerful, centralized authority to back sweeping reforms. By 1954, Mohammed Naguib was sidelined, removed from power, and placed under house arrest. Yet, he set the stage for what would come next, a charismatic leader whose name would echo across the decades. Gamal Abdel Nasser. Just the mention of his name evokes strong emotions in Egypt and beyond. Nasser rose to power in turbulent times, officially becoming Egypt's president in 1956, and he ushered in a period marked by ambition, revolution, and regional drama. Nasser wasn't just a national leader, he became a symbol of Arab unity, anti-imperialism, and socialism. His fiery speeches, many of them broadcast across the Arabic-speaking world, inspired millions to dream of pan-Arab solidarity and independence. Domestically, Nasser implemented sweeping reforms. He nationalized industries, redistributed land, and pushed for widespread education. However, his most famous domestic move came in 1956 with the nationalization of the Suez Canal. This decision sent shockwaves across the globe, especially Britain, France, and Israel, who had long profited from the strategically vital canal. When these nations launched a military intervention to retake the canal, Egypt stood firm. The episode wasn't just an attempt to control Egypt's waterways, it was a symbolic battle for sovereignty, with the world watching. Nasser's triumph solidified Egypt's standing as a fiercely independent nation. However, his policies weren't without controversy. Critics questioned the effectiveness of his socialist approach, especially as Egypt grappled with economic challenges. Perhaps Nasser's most significant legacy lies in his role as the pioneer of Arab nationalism. His vision of a unified Arab world was epitomized by the creation of the United Arab Republic in 1958, a political union between Egypt and Syria. While the union was short-lived, dismantled just 3 years later, it nevertheless embodied Nasser's ambition. By the time of his sudden death in 1970, Egyptians mourned a leader they viewed as a giant. Flawed, yes, but unforgettable. But if Nasser's vision was one of unity and revolution, his successor would chart an entirely different path. Enter Anwar Sadat. Sadat initially seemed to stand in Nasser's shadow, but he quickly proved himself a leader capable of reshaping Egypt's trajectory. Sadat's presidency, beginning in 1970, is remembered as a period of dramatic transformation, both domestically and internationally. The defining moment of his presidency came in October 1973, during the Yom Kippur War. Egypt launched a surprise attack on Israeli forces in the Sinai Peninsula, reclaiming a measure of military pride after its crushing defeat in the 1967 Six-Day War. Though Egypt didn't decisively win the war, Sadat's gambit paved the way for diplomatic negotiations, and diplomacy would be Sadat's hallmark. In 1978, Sadat shocked the Arab world when he signed the Camp David Accords with Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, brokered by U.S. President Jimmy Carter. The accords normalized relations between Egypt and Israel, marking the first peace treaty between Israel and an Arab nation. While Sadat was hailed as a visionary abroad, his recognition of Israel as a legitimate state angered many in the Arab world. Some viewed him as a traitor, a sellout who undermined Arab resistance against Israeli occupation. This divide would tragically culminate in Sadat's assassination in 1981, as he attended a military parade. Sadat's legacy remains complex. He ushered Egypt into a new era of diplomatic relations, but left behind lingering divisions. After Sadat's assassination, Egypt entered the era of Hosni Mubarak. His tenure, spanning nearly 30 years until 2011, was one of the longest and most controversial in Egypt's modern history. Mubarak, a military man like his predecessors, initially promised stability and continuity. And for many years, that's precisely what he delivered, a sense of calm amid regional turbulence. However, the calm came at a price: political stagnation, widespread corruption, and autocratic rule. Under Mubarak, Egypt established itself as an ally of the United States, receiving billions in military aid annually and maintaining the peace treaty with Israel. Economically, he pushed for investment and growth, though much of the wealth trickled up to a small elite, widening the gap between rich and poor. Over time, the Egyptian public grew restless. Mubarak's grip on power tightened, with dissent silenced, elections manipulated, and opposition marginalized. Inspired by uprisings across the Arab world, Egyptians took to the streets in the millions, demanding an end to Mubarak's rule. The revolution wasn't just about Mubarak. It was a cry for justice, for democracy, for change. On February 11, 2011, Mubarak stepped down, marking the end of an era. But what came next was far from stable. The years following Mubarak's fall were marked by uncertainty and struggle. Egypt's first democratic elections ushered in Mohamed Morsi, a candidate from the Muslim Brotherhood. His presidency, beginning in 2012, was controversial from the start. Some saw Morsi as a symbol of Egypt's newfound democracy, while others feared the Brotherhood's Islamist agenda. His attempts to consolidate power alienated both secularists and even military leaders. Protests erupted across the country, culminating in his removal by the military in 2013. The man who orchestrated Morsi's removal was Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Egypt's current president. Sisi, a former military officer, ascended to power in 2014 following elections that were boycotted by many opposition groups. His presidency has been marked by promises of stability and development, but also criticisms of authoritarianism. Yet concerns about human rights violations, political arrests, and a lack of press freedoms have shadowed his administration. Egypt's presidential history is a mirror of its turbulent modern journey. From revolutionaries to diplomats, autocrats to reformists, each leader has left their mark, some inspiring, some divisive. Their stories reflect the complexities of leading a nation where ancient history intertwines with modern aspirations. As Egyptians look ahead, the question lingers: what kind of leadership will propel this nation into a future worthy of its storied past? Each chapter of Egypt's presidency offers lessons, reminders, and a vision of what could yet be possible. Each chapter of Egypt's presidency offers lessons, reminders, and a vision of what could yet be possible. And while the pyramids may remain symbols of the country's ancient legacy, the ever-evolving story of Egypt's presidents shows that its future is still being written. Thank you for watching Historical Moments. We hope you enjoyed this trip through history. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories from the past. Until next time, keep exploring the moments that changed history.